things happen to us. We don't have control over that. I can't go back in time and undo it. I do have the ability to choose differently today. You have to recognize when you're just wallowing, your role in your own suffering. Like, are you choosing to stay feeling bad, or are you trying to do things to make it better?
Let's be honest, the world feels like a lot right now. Every time you open your phone, AI, politics, economy, life. And for so many of us, the question is, how do I stay okay when nothing feels stable or certain? And that is exactly why today's conversation matters for you. We are sitting down with Kati Morton, licensed therapist, best-selling author, and one of the most trusted mental health voices on social media. And we're talking all about how to protect your mental health in the middle of chaos. After this episode, you'll walk away with 3 things. Why uncertainty is exhausting your nervous system, how to deal with difficult people and emotional overwhelm, and simple, realistic hacks that create stability. This isn't about pretending to be fine. It's about learning how to be resilient, grounded, and happy even when everything's not perfect. Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Did you know that many of you who listen to this show haven't subscribed yet? So could we ask you a little favor? If our podcast brings you a small bit of happiness and you love the message and what you can learn, the easiest and free thing that you can do is just hit the subscribe button. And our commitment to you is that we're going to keep bringing you the best guests that we can get and bring more happiness insights and ways that you can make your life a little bit happier.
Kati, welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you on. We've really been looking forward to this conversation. You're such an incredible therapist and author, and you've also got a very large online following, which is amazing, because you share information for anyone to learn about mental health. So take us back to the start. What led you to being a therapist?
Honestly, it's kind of a funny story because I knew that I was interested in psychology probably like in high school, like early high school, because I loved being the secret keeper. Like, I wanted to know the tea, but I didn't want to be involved in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love to know about the drama, but like, don't pull me into it. And so I always really enjoyed like that piece and like listening and knowing all the dirty deets. And then my high school had opened up like a Psych 101 class. I don't know if it was I think it was the first year or the second semester that they offered it. And my girlfriend was like, we should try it. It sounds really interesting. I think it'd be up your alley. And I was like, okay, sure. And I loved it. I was like, sold. And then I started looking into colleges that had a good psych program because at the time I was going to be a music major. That's like a random fact. If they ever asked at a party, like they think that was my lie, 2 truths and a lie. So I got a scholarship to actually sing in choir at Pepperdine, as well as to do psychology, because initially I was going to be like a music major. And then taking that class, I was like, oh, I love it. And so that's kind of where I guess the seed was planted.
That's amazing. And I think that really just stems to how important it is to just try different things out, especially when you're in high school, because you never know what will really stick.
So cool, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really curious, what kind of made you start creating online content?
To be truthful, it's kind of a funny story because this is back in 2011, which is a whole different, like if you could go in the Wayback Time machine, it's like such a different time. And my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, I was actually just out of grad school and still training to get my hours. I wasn't licensed yet. And he went to this conference and then he's like, they were talking about this thing called YouTube and like, I think we should do it. And he had a film production background. So that really is a big, like huge help. I would have no idea. Anyway, so he brought it to my attention and I was like, that's weird. Like, I don't really want to be on camera. I don't really know. Isn't that just cats like playing pianos? I just wasn't interested. And he, thank God, persisted. He was like, no, people do this. And he started sending me videos of like people like Jenna Marbles and Anna Akana and all these different, Hank Green. And he was like, no, people do this and they like educate. And I think you could do it. And so after about 6 months, I was like, fine, I'll try it, but like you have to do all the work and all I'll do is just like create the content for the videos. And so that's essentially how it was born. We started in December, I forget the exact date, like almost right around New Year's of December of 2011.
I think it's so interesting because, yeah, YouTube and social media in of itself has evolved so much since 2011. So I think it's cool that you were like one of the original kind of voices on there.
Yeah,
and
first.
that you continue to, evolve with the platform and keep sharing. Because what I love about social media and, the digital age that we live in is like knowledge about mental health is so accessible. If someone can't afford to go to a therapist or doesn't have one near them, they can also learn about mental health from like someone like you who has
and it becomes
an
more
education
normalized.
in it. It's not
Totally. And it should be, right? It shouldn't be like hidden. And it's funny, back in the day when I first started. So again, social media was not at all what it is today. No one was talking about it. I was kind of like, this sounds bad to say this way, but I was a total weirdo. Like, I'd be like at VidCon, I'd be like, hey, I'd love to collaborate. And people would be like, I don't really talk about that stuff, but like I could be on your channel. So you'll see a lot of my early collabs are like just on my channel, like not on their channel. And I'm like, oh, that's, you're like, I need to collab, like you need to grow. And so I ran into that a lot. And then I even remember back in Twitter days, like early Twitter, I would just start following people who had like hashtag mental health, hashtag Anna, Edie, like all sorts of different things. And they'd be like, why are you following me, creepier, and like people were so, it was just such a funny space to be in. I was definitely like the odd man out. And then it's just kind of funny how it's evolved. I have to give like credit to my husband that he had, the foresight to be like, we should do this and it'll be a thing, because trust me, I'm not that person. I don't have those ideas.
That's so funny because it's really crazy how it has evolved. And now everyone is, talking about mental health or trying their own shot at social media. So that's very interesting. And, shifting gears to kind of mental health and happiness, our podcast, Hack Your Happiness, we talk a lot about happiness and well-being, but I'm curious, what role does resilience play in feeling happy? What's something that anyone can do to feel happier and build resilience?
I think that's a great question. Resilience is really important because you have to think of resilience as just like your ability to weather life's storms. And life is unpredictable, right? Like it sucks, but it's true. And that means that we're going to have down times. We're going to have things not work out. We're going to have people hurt our feelings, break our heart. And like, how do we handle that? And that goes to our level of resilience. And so there are some very basic things I always like to start with, because I don't think we put enough stock in how important these things are, is that if you want to build your resilience, I know there's going to be a ton of people online being like, take a vacation, get a massage. And you're like, dude, I can't afford that. Like, sweet Jesus, like, what are you trying to tell me? And so the basic things are like the best. So have you showered recently? I swear to God, a shower can change your life. Have you taken your medication? If you have something that's prescribed, you have an illness, we need to treat that. Like, I'm the crabbiest when I'm sick, let's be honest. Have you eaten recently? Have you drank enough water? Like, those are the things I always want people to start with. And then we could get into, like, I'm a huge fan of journaling. If you've ever listened to me, or like, I feel like I say it so much, my audience like rolls their eyes, but it's really powerful. And I think something that I've done, now this, I'm going on a little tangent, but hang with me, I promise it's important. In the last couple of years of my life, I've had a really tough time. Like, I would argue, my therapist would probably tell you, like, she was struggling with depression. And I'd be like, yes. But it's like a good reminder that just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean my life is perfect, doesn't mean I don't have hard times, but that it challenged me to get back into journaling. And something that I did has like rewired my brain. Now I know this logically, but practicing it was just so powerful and so important for me to be like, yes, this works. Every time I journal, so I try to journal probably 3 times a week, if I'm being honest. I don't like doing all or nothing, like every day or none. So about 3 times a week, and I force myself to start with gratitude. So I'm like, what am I grateful for? Now, I know everybody talks about that, like practice gratitude, and we just want to like throw up. We're like, please stop. But it really, really works. And so that really helped shift me out of my funk. And then in my journaling, I would write about the things I'm excited about as if it's happening. So I'd be like, I am so excited to get another dog. I really want another dog, but like, they're a lot of work. I'm so excited. She's going to be so cute and so fluffy, and like, she's going to be so much fun. And I would just tell myself like the best, I'm so excited about this. And I'm so excited to speak. I want to speak more. That's something that I like doing. So I'm like, I want to speak more and meet more people. This will be so cool. I'm so excited to go to more conferences. I used to do that back before COVID. This is going to be so exciting. And I would just pretend like it's happening. And I swear to you, it sounds so cheesy in like, as I'm talking about it, but I realized just the other day that what it's done is it's made it so that my brain legitimately won't even hang out in the land of this isn't going to work out or this is terrible, because it's like, no, this is I'm excited, this is going to be amazing. Like my husband asked, because I was like I want to buy a dream, I want a pool, I want my dream house. And I was like, I'm going to buy it. And he goes, so how, just tell me like I was like, you're asking the wrong questions, dude. I don't need to tell you how it's going to happen. I just know that it is. And that sounds so weird, but it's like, that's the way my brain works now. So I encourage everybody, if you think journaling isn't for you, or you're like, what am I supposed to talk about? Just write about the things that you want to happen as if it's happening. And it's been like a game changer for me.
That is a terrific hack, because first of all, I love, Katie, that you share with us that, you've also been struggling. And because I think we can look at, therapists and say, wow, like if I was a therapist, or if I, take a degree in psychology, then, I'll always, have a good outlook on everything. But thank you for being so open and sharing, that you've also been struggling. But what's really helped is journaling about those exciting moments as if they were happening, because I know Anastasia's into journaling a lot.
I'm very big
and
journaler.
What I love about your little hack, Katie, is that anyone can do it, right? If you're looking at the idea of journaling, you're like, well, I want to journal, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to process my feelings on a piece of paper. Well, that's a great place to start, is just writing down what you're excited about, like it's happening right now.
Absolutely. And I find that almost when you're journaling and you're having like those like heavy feelings, it really feels like it's such like a weight taken off of you. And then after that, I find that whenever I'm kind of writing about like a hard day, or maybe I got like a bad mark on a test, or I wasn't having a great time with a friend, writing that down, and after that you feel like you want to start looking for more of those good things.
Totally.
And you kind of say, well, even though I didn't have a good time at school, when I got home, I had a really great snack, or it was a really beautiful sunrise this morning on the drive.
Yeah.
And it's a really great way to, like you said, kind of rewire your brain, because then you kind of start thinking like that because of the way that you're writing, and kind of internalizing and externalizing your feelings.
Totally. And it can like fix a bad mood too. Like I always push myself. I'm like, when I'm having like a really bad day is when I'm like, I need to journal, and I'll be like, you've got to go do it. Like you're kind of being a jerk right now. And so I'll like, be like, I got to go in my office. I got to journal. And you don't even have to take more than 5 minutes either. I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to spend all this time. I'm like, just 5 minutes.
It's easier than not doing it at all. And it's just about getting started. Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that me and Mercedes, and I think a lot of teenagers and the people who are, raising them, and the
we
teachers
have a lot
that
of
are
parents
teaching
and
them.
teachers who like to
Absolutely.
listen. Yeah.
We know that there are a lot of mean girls out there, and like I mentioned, this doesn't just affect the teens, it also affects their parents, their teachers, everyone around them. So why are there so many teens who are mean?
I think meanness or harshness just comes out of unhappiness with self. And I know that's an easy thing to say. It's hard if you're the one that's receiving like the behavior. I mean, I had my fair share of bullying and like mean girls, and I'm sure I was a mean girl at some point too. Like no one's perfect, right? Like if you went back in high school, some girl would be like, I didn't like her, and that's fair, but I think in general, even myself, like if I'm really short-tempered, or really like think about your own personal experience, like if I'm really mean to somebody, or really like just harsh, or like not as patient as I should be, it's because I'm not doing well. And so I know that doesn't make bullying or mean girl behavior any better, but it does at least give you some kind of understanding of where it's coming from. And then I cannot emphasize this enough, is that like, if someone is acting that way, I give you full permission to just pretend they don't exist. Like that's my best advice. I know a lot of people will be like, well, you should tell them, or you need to tell an adult. I used to counsel a bunch of high schoolers when I had my practice in Santa Monica, and one in particular, he was dealing with these bullies, and no matter what we tried to do, no matter like how, I was like, well, just tell them like, hey, can you please leave, or like go away, I'm gonna have to go get the teacher, just like be firm. It would just make it worse. Like everything made it worse. And so instead of trying to get snarky or have a good comeback, it's almost just like pretend they don't exist. And the more time you spend in that journaling and like in that positivity space, and with people who are like supportive of you and loving, like just the other day, it's funny you guys brought this up, because just the other day I was at this like event, and there were just some mean girls there, and I knew it right away. Like, the vibe. And I was like, my friend and I say, our values don't align. Like my values just don't align with theirs. And I knew it. And I was like, okay, but I'm still friendly. I'm not going to be the mean girl. But we were like all in a conversation, and one of the women like turned her back to me, like in the conversation, to almost like push me out of the circle. And because I've been doing so much work on myself in this like space, I didn't even realize it till I was telling my husband about it later, that like I was unaffected. It's mind boggling. It didn't bother me at all. I didn't try to like scoot my way back in. I didn't try to prove to her that I was worth having a conversation with. I just stood there and was just like, we were having snacks and doing this little tour. And so I was like, oh, just hanging out, whatever. And so if you feel like people are like being jerks and like pushing your buttons and like treating you like trash, just know that like, if you spend enough time with yourself, you'll realize they don't matter and you'll actually feel that, which is like so different, you know?
I love what you said there about just, pretend they don't exist and focus on all the good or anything that is good in your life right now, because I think when we're dealing with people who are mean to us, and like you said, it's not just when you're a teen, it's when you're an adult too. It can be at college, it can be at the workplace, or just like at an event, someone else's party, whatever. When you are able to, detach your sense of self-worth from how someone else treats you that doesn't like you in the first place, and attach your sense of self-worth more so towards how you feel about yourself and how the people that you do care about treat you, like your loved ones and the people who, usually are there for you, it empowers you, because I know that obviously I think most teens experience, someone who leaves them out or someone who's mean to them, and there's different degrees of it, but you can really start to feel like you're not worthy or you're not good enough, or what's wrong with me. But when you realize it's them and I'm just going to ignore them because that's an issue they need to deal with, is why they are treating others like this, it can really be empowering for oneself. I 100% agree.
Yes, definitely.
And speaking of other people, whether it's people who are positive or negative, Anastasia and I have heard quite a lot online and from other podcasts we've done, in that we're quite influenced as humans by other people's mood. So why are we so susceptible to other people's moods? And is there a way to, maybe especially in negative circumstances, be less susceptible to moods?
That's another great question, and I wish we weren't. The truth about it is, if we think back, and I know we'll talk about, there's many reasons, but the main is, if we think back to childhood, okay, our parents' mood, our siblings' mood affected us, right? Like, for better, for worse, and this isn't, a lot of people might be like, well, my family was great. Okay, cool, kudos to you. However, it still means that, like, if your mom was in a bad mood and you asked for another thing, she might have snapped at you, or she'd be impatient, right? And in those small moments, no parent, I'm not blaming any parents, no parent is perfect. However, as humans, we depend on each other for a lot of things, especially when we're younger. We depend on our family as a whole to put a roof over our head, food in our belly, clothes on our back, all that basic stuff, right? Emotional support, like we could take it a level deeper. Then if they're in a bad mood, that means that those things might not be met. And so we quickly learn that reading the room, assessing people's emotions, is valuable information for us to then figure out how we want to act, or how we need to maintain that connection. And maybe in my case, like I don't like conflict. So it was like, how do I avoid any conflict, right? And that was all by reading moods. And that's really why, is that we are susceptible, because it used to have such an impact on us. And we, unfortunately, when we were growing up, we're essentially putting together the blueprint for our life and relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like? We're figuring it out with the way our parents interact with each other. How's conflict resolved or treated? We're figuring that out. And then we take that into our adulthood. I mean, I'm 42, so it's still happening. I'm sorry to tell you, but I have more awareness. But that's really why, is because that blueprint and all of that information was predicated on me being able to read moods and then be able to adapt. And we're super adaptive, and that can be great. But then in situations like this, we're like, I wish it would stop. And because we can be really connected to other people, I find that we don't pick up on moods usually, unless maybe we had no boundaries. But we don't pick up on moods of people that we're not connected with. It's the people that we know well. And that's why, is because that relationship is important to us and valuable. And therefore, we're reading them more, closely, and we're absorbing. And I think also, like, just as a caveat to add on to this, I think with the amount of information that we receive through social media just is like lowering our resilience, kind of, because we're like bombarded with messages. And I find that can make us more susceptible to picking up on like anybody's emotional state. Because I remember I even wrote about this, I think, in my most recent book, or my book before that, where I was like, I realized I felt bad for this lady that, like, on TikTok found out she was cheated on by her fiance. And I was like, oh no. And then I was in a bad mood, and I'm like, where did this come from? It's not mine. And I think it was because it just caught me at a moment. We're empathic creatures, right? We care about each other, and that can really affect us. And the way to stop it, I mean, there's tons we can talk about if you want me to get into that. But the first piece is like having healthy boundaries is going to be big. But I want to say that with the understanding that the first boundary is internal. Now, we talk a lot about boundaries like, if you keep talking to me that way, I'm going to leave, because I can put in the request like, hey, stop talking to me that way. They don't have to do anything. But the boundary is I'm going to leave. Like if you do, I'm going to leave. And then I hold that boundary. I leave. However, if we've been people pleasing or fawning for a lot of our life, like I'm in recovery from it, it's not that easy, right? That's like an outward step, and that can give me a lot of anxiety, and I can feel like guilty immediately. I'm like, why am I such a jerk? I'm so selfish, blah, blah, blah. All these like old stories, right? That aren't true, but it's what I tell myself. And all that, what I tell myself, is what we need to work on first. So the first piece I always tell people is if you're going to try to be less affected by others and have healthier boundaries, you need to stop lying to yourself. And so you have to start paying attention to what you say about boundaries. What do you think about them? What do you tell yourself about them? Like I just rattled off some easily, right? Like I'm such a jerk. I'm so selfish. Think about that, because those are lies, but we take them as truth. We act like they're fact, and then we act out of that. And so we could go back to journaling. You could even do mirror work. If you want me to talk about mirror work, what mirror work is, I can. But we have to pay attention to what we're saying to ourselves, and that's where we start.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, first of all, I just want to say what you said about, the people near us having like the biggest effect on our mood is actually so profound, because I think I just realized it just now. Like, it's true. Sometimes like I'll meet someone, like maybe you're like at a store and the person who's helping you out is not like in the best mood. You can tell that they're kind of like annoyed, or they don't want to be at work right now. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't think that type of situation has ever actually derailed me from being happy or having a fun day or whatever it is. But then if, my sister's like annoyed, I all of a sudden feel more annoyed. And it's interesting because I never actually put two and two together till you mentioned that, but that's fascinating. Okay, quick pause. If someone popped into your mind as you're listening to this episode, a friend, a parent, a teacher, send them the link to this conversation. The world is really heavy right now, and a lot of people are carrying it alone. This conversation with Kati isn't about making everything perfect. It's about finding happiness and calmness within the chaos. So if you know someone who is overwhelmed, stuck in a tough relationship, or just trying to feel better during some uncertain times that we're going through, send them the link to this episode, because when we spread some happiness, we also feel happier. Now let's get back into the conversation. What is mirror work? I would love to know.
Yeah, I've heard that term a lot, especially online, but I feel like it's often very convoluted in the way people explain it.
Yeah, and I'm new to it. Okay, I'm trying it out myself, so I know what it is, but there's different to practice it, right? So mirror work is I'm going to be honest, is very challenging. It's simple. What you do is you stand in your bathroom, wherever you have a mirror, private. You want to shut the door, and you look yourself in the eye, and you tell yourself what I would say are like, we call them good mother messages in therapy, but it's like the things that you really needed to hear. Like I can even get teary just thinking about it, because it's like the stuff that like let's say you're having a bad day at school, and you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm good at math. I can do this. I've done it before, or like, I'm a good friend. I love you. You're important. You don't need to earn anything. Do you know what I mean? You're enough as you are. Like, it's all of those things that we really need to hear, but we so often don't, or we don't really listen. And mirror work, that's why it's challenging. It's simple. It takes 5 minutes, or actually 2 minutes. But you look yourself in the eye, and at first it feels real weird, and you like almost like, ooh, but sometimes it makes you cry. Sometimes it makes you, feel relief. Like the other day, I was doing my mirror work, and I was like, oh, I just felt like just the weight lifted. And so it's just a really powerful way to improve how you think and talk to yourself. And you're doing it out loud. And I think that's why it's a little uncomfortable, but it's also confronting, because you're like, oh my God, I don't think I ever say this to myself. Or that's how I felt. To each their own. Like, kudos to people who are like talking nice to themselves all the time. But it's been a really impactful I try to start my day that way.
I love that. That's such a great way to like start your day because it like sets a right tone. And I know you noticed I was talking about healthy relationships, and we have so many relationships. They are so central to our lives, from friends to boyfriends to girlfriends to family and more. But how can we tell if a relationship is healthy, and why are they so important?
Relationships are incredibly important. I can nerd out for just a second and tell you kind of why. That you can really dig into the polyvagal theory. Dr. Stephen Porges did a ton of research on how our body feels soothed, how our nervous system feels regulated. And we used to think like back in, I think like the 70s and 80s, that it was either our nervous system was activated or inactive, like rest and digest. That's all we thought there was. However, through his research, he found that there was a third way that our nervous system can act, and it can be soothed through a little bit of both, meaning that through true connection, our body can be both relaxed and also activated to make change. And that is why relationships are so pivotal, is because they are the motivator of our life. They are soothing to our system, and we're wired for them. Like, that's the way our nervous system's put together, right? And so if anybody wants to nerd out, you can read about all his research, but that's essentially what the polyvagal theory is. And so that's just one piece of why relationships are beneficial. There's also the fact that like sharing in tough times makes them feel less heavy, and sharing in joys. There's that old adage that's like, any trouble shared is halved and any joy shared is doubled. And that's very true in how we all feel when we have community, when we have connection. Now, the way to know if they're healthy or unhealthy is truly in our bodies, which I know we always think, oh, but they said this thing, or behaviors and words are important too. Let's not discredit that. However, I would argue that your body knows before. It knows earlier. These are the bad relationships. Let's start with bad. The bad relationships are the ones that leave you feeling depleted. You leave time with them, you're like, oh, like you need like a nap, or you're like, oh my gosh, she's so exhausting, or he is always just talking about himself. It's those are red flag. That's red flag. Now, this doesn't mean they're bad people, that you're great and they're terrible. This just means it's not working for you. This is not a good relationship. Okay. And so those are the first indicators. It could also be that you just get nervous, or you don't want to see them. You keep putting it off, or like you dread it. All indicators. Those are like bodily indicators. Bad relationship. Good relationships. On the flip side, you leave feeling re-energized. You can't wait to see them. You love sharing in your joys and in your struggles, and vice versa. And it feels very just supportive and loving. I mean, it's all the things that we kind of know, but again, your body feels good. You don't feel depleted. You actually feel better, and you can't wait to see them again.
I really love how you said the body knows first, because I feel like that is so true. Oftentimes we can tell ourselves a bunch of things, saying, no, they're good friends. No, I like hanging out with them. And I think we've all had like that like group of friends that really don't make us feel good, but we just don't want to leave them because it's kind of awkward.
It's like when you like feel physically sick before you see your friends, and you're like, oh, I'm just nervous, it's normal, but
I just don't want to school, but you have that like pit in your stomach driving up. And I think that that's such a telling sign, and it's really important to kind of notice that so that you can kind of pivot that. And like you said, like the people we surround ourselves with are really impacting the way we feel and the way we think. And I think that if we're surrounding ourselves with people who make us feel bad, then that's also going to impact the way we think about ourselves.
100%.
I have a question though, because sometimes we have a toxic friend or family member that we just can't cut off, or maybe it's someone that we see every day at work or at school.
They're in our
so
circle.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to leave our circle. So how can we deal with a person like this and not let them kind of steal from our life, even if they do drain us?
Great question, because there's a lot of people like that. And I do also, I support when people decide to cut people out, but I also recognize there's a lot of situations that where we don't want to, or we're not able to. And there are a few tips and tricks that I can offer on how to manage. And first is to always keep the conversation very surface level. I used to say this in panels, like in VidCon days and stuff, where I'd be like, don't ever give someone the bullets to kill you. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to give my enemies, like, because think of them, I mean, it sounds bad, I guess, to say enemy, but someone that I don't want in my life, but I can't get rid of, like, I don't want to give them any information about me. And that is like self-protection. And if they're offended, they probably wouldn't even notice, because the trick is, so don't keep it surface level and always ask them about themselves. Just keep asking about them. People love to talk about themselves. So if you're forced into situations like family events or at work, always say like, how was your weekend? What are you doing? How was that? How'd that test go for you? Did you feel good about this? Ask them all the questions and just keep it on them, because that protects you essentially. And then another is, if you are able to limit contact, limit it as much as possible. Like, don't do one-on-one time with them, and if it's okay if someone's like, hey, I really want to do this. You said you were free this day, and be like, actually, I'm not free. I'm so sorry. You're just never available. You don't have to be available. And I've heard some people are like, I can't believe you're condoning lying. And I'm like, if it protects you from a bad situation, and it's better off that way. I'm not saying we lie all the time, but sometimes you just don't want to spend time with that someone, and it's okay to make up a story to get yourself out of it. Again, self-protection first. And those are really just the ways. And then also, I guess the third tip is, if it's like family and you have to go there, it's like Thanksgiving, bring a supportive person. Or if you have to go out to this party, like, hey, I can't not go because like it's so-and-so's birthday, but I know she's going to be there. Well, bring a good friend, because I tell you, they can really make it. Also, you can giggle about it together, and you can like be doing your own thing, and it just gives you a person to talk to when maybe you don't actually want to talk to anybody else.
Yes, thank you. Those are incredible tips, because, we always are going to have someone that we don't want to see, whether it's, that they just don't get along, we don't mesh well with them, or maybe they've done something that, has hurt us in the past, but we still have to hang out with them. So I think these are some really very great tips for anyone who's listening with us to take away and like implement into your life. Like, limit the contact as much as possible. Bring someone who you feel supported by, and if you have to hang out with them. And then, of course, keep them on the spotlight, because they won't even notice.
Exactly. Just give them the question.
Exactly.
And I love this quote that you've shared, that there's a certain part in healing where you have to acknowledge your role in your own pain. So I want to know more about this mindset, and how can we find more acceptance in our own lives?
Great question. That quote, it's funny because it came about to me because a member of my community was like, I saw this online and it's offensive. And I was like, is it? And sometimes you have to challenge, right? Automatic response was, they were very triggered because what they thought it was saying is that they were to blame for the trauma that happened to them. That's not what this is. This is not saying that you're responsible for what happened. What this is saying is, okay, things happen to us. We don't have control over that. I can't go back in time and undo it, unfortunately. I wish I could. However, I do have the ability to choose differently today. And we all know those people, or maybe we see it in ourselves, where something bad happens and I just ruminate and roll in it, and people offer tips and things, and we're like, we don't want to hear it. We actually don't want to change. We just want to like wallow. Now, there's a time and a place. Sometimes, if a breakup or a friend fight, you can wallow for a little bit. However, you have to recognize when you're just wallowing. And that's really what that quote is like your role in your own suffering. Like, are you choosing to stay feeling bad, or are you trying to do things to make it better? I know it's hard. Trust me. I'm there too. Like, sometimes life is hard, but I want to choose better so that tomorrow Katie feels at least a little bit better than today, Katie, or is doing better. Like, I always joke when I'm doing stuff around the house, I'm like, this is for tomorrow, Katie, because she's not going to want to do this. Like, I'm setting myself up for success. And that's what this is like, we have to acknowledge when we're deciding to stay stuck, when we're choosing bad relationships. We've all had that friend, or maybe we've been that friend where they're dating somebody and you're like, and they stay with them and they feel like they have to. And so we have to just acknowledge our role in that and empower. I think it's a much more empowered space to be when you're like, I can choose different, right? But we have to take that power back.
100%. That is a beautiful way to look at it. And I totally agree, Katie. I think, when something very bad happens to you, it's one thing, but how you're going to respond with that. Like, are you going to find a therapist, or maybe you're going to, cut that person off out of your life, or what are you going to do about it, is very empowering. And I think that, when you take control over your own life, it actually can lead to you feeling more empowered and confident and happy.
And I think, like, if you're stuck in that kind of self-pity of like, everything else just happens to me and I'm just the victim and I can't do anything about it, it kind of perpetuates that kind of cycle. Like, you'll find that almost like more things are like attracted to you that aren't great, because you're almost like trying to look for those things more, and you're almost like bringing them closer to you, because like maybe you're wallowing so much, you're not spending as much time with your friends, and now you're not as close to them anymore, and you're like, why do all my friends hate me?
Yeah.
And that kind of perpetuates that.
It's tough.
And there's actually research to prove you're 100% right, Anastasia, that you do, like, it's called negative bias. I'm sure you probably heard about it on the internet, but really what it is that our brain will look for things in our environment to confirm what it already knows. And so if you're telling it like, hey, everybody hates me, this is terrible, I'm a bad person, you're going to look for things that support that, and then you're going to negate the positive. So like, even if good things happen, you're like, ugh, she was just lying to me, giving me that compliment, or it was a fluke, I got that good grade, or whatever. Versus being like, wow, things are going well, right? It's like you'll find what you look for.
It's crazy how our brains operate. I think it's absolutely crazy.
You find what you look for. I think that's a really
And so
great
that's that perspective of like, you know what? Yes, something bad happened to me, or yes, I've really been having a hard time lately, but I'm going to focus on seeing things through a more positive lens, because otherwise I'm going to just stay in this bad kind of mentality. I think that's beautiful. And I want to talk about kind of the modern day that we're living in, because it's a bit of a crazy age. There's been a lot of uncertainty between the pandemic and now the emergence and the rapid rise of AI and a lot of political issues and instability in 2026. So, Katie, from your perspective as a therapist, how has uncertainty changed the way that we all experience stress and anxiety today?
I think it's definitely heightened it. I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier, like that I don't believe we're supposed to be exposed to as much media as we are. And I really believe, and I'm not the first person to say this, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I believe that we will look back on our engagement with social media kind of like we look back on cigarettes, where people are like, I can't believe you thought you should be on that like all day long. I can't believe that you thought that was healthy or okay. Because I think that a lot of people are living in fight or flight, which is otherwise known as our stress response, because of the amount of media that they absorb. And so the best thing we can do for ourselves, like one of my New Year's resolutions is I don't want to bring my phone to bed. Like I don't want to be on TikTok. I mean, TikTok's I don't know why, it's like the most addictive. I just can't get out. And so I don't bring it to bed anymore, because it would like keep me up, and I'd also sometimes get stressed out, like be watching something or someone's opinion, and it's like, ugh, or hearing about something and you're like, that's terrible, right? I don't need that. And I know people would say like, well, you don't want to be ignorant, or you don't want to not be informed. We're plenty informed. I think we're too informed. And I think unlike back, and this like dates me, but I think it's important to reference pre-social media, we used to have time before, like let's say there was an incident in my city. I would hear about it, and then they would say it's under investigation. And then we would wait. And at the end of the week or whatever, they'd be like, the investigation is complete and here's what we know. And there was no conversation in between. We got to wait to get the facts. Now it's like something happens, people spout their opinions, and it becomes fact. And then we get really riled up. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And it just perpetuates this stress response, this fight, flight. We feel like we're always under threat. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And so I know everybody wants to blame social media, but I think it deserves the lion's share of this increased level of anxiety, just stress, burnout, all of that, because I don't believe as humans we were really created to be this connected. I think it's a little too much. And I challenge everybody to like block, mute, unfollow. Like we talk about, new year, new me a lot, and people are like, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to eat healthy. Let's instead worry about what we're digesting with our eyes. Like pay attention. Like what are you absorbing? Because that's a diet that I could get behind. Is like, hey, I should make sure it's like healthy. Like, not to brag, but my TikTok now is mainly like the farrers, the people that like cut the hooves of milk cows. Don't even ask. I don't know how I found myself there. And then there's this guy that like always cleans and does nice things for his wife. I like him too. Like I've curated it because I just swipe and like, show me less. I don't want this. And I think we need to be a little bit more careful that way, because it's exacerbating our already existing, mental health issues that we might have. Like I can get really stressed out and get really anxious. I don't want to feed into that.
100%. It's so interesting because I agree. I think, there's this concept of like, oh, social media keeps me connected with others and it keeps me in the know, but we can watch TV or we can read the news and still be very well in the know. And
Definitely.
what I think is interesting about social media is not only does it like give us all this information, like it bombards us with facts or not facts, depending on what your social media is looking like. But I think it's also interesting because it almost generates like, for me at least, a sense of like trust issues. I'm like, well, just because this person said that that's what's happening, is that the case? And then I have to go and like do research and find it on a reliable source online. But it's like, just because you're spending so much time online doesn't mean that you're actually more in the know, because you're like questioning everything, or at least it's probably a good idea to question other people's opinions that are just being freely posted online. So it's definitely
and
very
I often
challenging.
almost find that like when you're scrolling, it's like you're getting like these like longer form videos sometimes, and you'll be like scrolling through them and you're like kind of getting bored, so then you keep scrolling, but then you just feel like there's a lot of like boredom that you find on there, and then you leave, but then you don't know what else to do with yourself, so you come back and you're like getting stressed out because you don't really know how to escape it. And I think that definitely being able to also find like dopamine that's not just connected to your phone, especially TikTok. I know, like
it is the most, I think it's the most addictive. I totally agree. Yeah,
I think so. It's also, it's funny. One of my friends does he's a neuroscientist. Total slack. I'm just kidding. He's like such a smarty pants, and he was talking about how our like the amount of connection we have. It's almost like social media through TikTok. Like for your example, Anastasia, is like fast food. It's like junk. It's like not the stuff that you actually want to digest. And it doesn't actually make us feel better. And it's like cheap dopamine is what he calls it. It's like, it's there, but it's not like really what we need, right? It's not satiating, which is why we keep going for more and more and more. And it's almost like we need to tap, and I'm saying this as much to myself as to anybody else, it's almost like we need to find hobbies again, like real hobbies, like it sounds so silly, but if somebody's like, what are your hobbies? Like, I can't say like sitting on my couch scrolling through the internet while like a random TV show's on. Like, that's not, that's not a hobby, right? But we need to have some things that we do, you know, like one of my girlfriends always says, I need to go touch grass. Like we need to get outside. We need to do things. And I think that we unfortunately get caught in this, especially it's cold, it's winter. We can feel like stuck inside. But you know, maybe we get into crafts or something. I don't know, try something different.
I think that's interesting. It's a cool comparison. Yeah. If TikTok is like the fast food of, I guess, yeah, if TikTok is fast food of dopamine, what would be like the Whole Foods of dopamine, do you think?
I think us hanging out together, like if we were at a coffee shop right now just chatting, that's like that's like I had like, you know, chicken, rice, and veggies. I had like a full rounded meal. That would be like real connection, like with people. And it'd have to be those quality connections too, I think, if we want to take it up to like a full, like all the nutrients we need. It would be like those relationships where you walk away being like, oh, I'm so filled. I feel so good.
It's so interesting. Yeah. Even just like when you're making plans with friends, being like really intentional, like, well, maybe let's not go to like the movie theater or like hang out at people's houses where you all just end up on your phones anyway.
I know that whenever
like going out
sometimes
to a
with my friends,
yeah.
Making like a phone tower where it's like, I know sometimes it's difficult because I'll be like, my mom needs to like message like to pick me up, and if I don't respond fast, she'll get mad at me. But we'll like stack it all, so if someone goes to like get their phone, everyone's like, what are you doing? You need to have a valid excuse to grab and just check. And what do you think would be your top tips for feeling happier and having that kind of sense of stability, and despite all this uncertainty that's really going on?
There's so much. First, if we feel really uncertain, we feel really chaotic, it does help for us to take action where we can. So if there's something that is really close to your heart and you're like, hey, this is really bothering me and I'm really worried about this, it does make us feel better to be able to do something. So maybe that means that, I don't know, let's say we're upset because something local, like we're worried that the school is not going to be able to build the new stadium, and that's important to us. I don't know, maybe we play a sport. Then maybe we ask how we can volunteer and we can help out, or we stay after and we talk to the teachers and figure out what they're doing, like, or, you know, we tell our parents to help out with this. Like, there's actions that we can take sometimes to help us feel better. So I always want people to feel empowered to take action where they can, in a safe way, obviously, and, you know, locally, things that are easy for you. That's really great, especially if you feel uncertain. However, other tips for happiness are a lot of the things that we kind of talked about. I really want people to journal and to practice some gratitude. And I challenge, so there's another little tip that this is like years and years ago, when I was having another tough time, because life is like that, ups and downs. And I didn't like that I would judge people. This makes me sound really bad, but I'm just being honest. That I would like judge people on the street. I'd be like, ooh, that sweater. No, or whatever. I don't know. I was a jerk. I don't know. I was in my 20s. I was just being crazy. And I was like, I don't like that about myself. So I'm going to change it, right? I can change. And so I forced myself to say compliments about everybody I saw. And if before I said a compliment, I said something nasty, I had to think of two. And it sounds really crazy. It kind of was. And it was very tedious. But I swear to you, my mood shifted like a complete 180 from being like negative and down to thinking positively and being just more excited to be out in the world. And I think that's kind of just the testament to like another way that we can try to change our brain out of negativity and into positivity. Again, because then you start looking for things to compliment people, which is such an interesting, like it like forces your brain out of this like, ooh, into like, oh, good for them, yay. Like it's just such a different place to be in. And so that's one of the things that I've done. I also want to encourage people to move their body. Notice I didn't say workout, because workout just has like a connotation. I need to sweat it out. But moving your body feels good. A lot of times we can even like habit stack where it's like, I'm going to catch up with my girlfriend and I'm going to go walk around. Like one of the things I used to do in high school is me and my girlfriend would go like walk the stadium steps and then around the track, and that we just catch up. So do something like that. Then you're exercising. You're also, chatting with your girlfriend and feeling connected. That's really important too. And then I guess I'm trying to think if there's anything like outside the box. If you find yourself feeling super anxious because like kind of that like out of control, things are really chaotic, as weird as it sounds, a full body shake helps reset your nervous system. When we have that internal anxiety, where your heart's kind of racing, your hands might be sweaty, and you almost feel like you can't catch your breath. You're like, like deep breaths like that. Shake out, like a dog out of the bath, like from the top of your head to the bottoms of your feet. It feels real weird. You will probably be out of breath. That's just what it does. But it gives that energy that's circulating in your system. It gives it a way out, because you have to think of how your body works. Is that when it gets stressed out, when it gets overwhelmed, it goes into fight or flight, which is really an action-based stress response. It wants us to do something. If we can't do those things, then we can fall into like freeze and fawn and those other less active, but that's secondary. That's not primary. Our body doesn't want to do that. And so it really wants to protect us. Meaning that if we're feeling really overwhelmed, that means our body's rage. It has so much energy. It wants to do a lot of things. It has nowhere for it to go. And we don't know what to do. And we're sitting on our couch scrolling through the internet, and it's not really helping, right? Like TikTok is just not making it feel better. And so if you get up and you shake out, if you're laying in bed and you can't sleep and your thoughts ruminate, shake out. I swear to God, it can change your whole entire like feeling and then improve your mood.
Incredible. Thank you. That is such a great assortment of tools for the person listening and for us all to implement into our life. And I have to say, like, I know there's a lot going on about uncertainty right now, aside from just social media. Like, I know even like on the weekend, I was reading a lot about like all the different things happening with AI and like the different AIs coming out. And I was feeling so like, I guess
it's a lot
in my head about it. And then I went with my mom and Anastasia to the mall and like just walked around, and we had a great chat. And I think, just sometimes when you're feeling really in your head, like just taking a break from it and going outside and like really just thinking about the real world and like what's happening to the people in your life and to you, and actually like walking around, kind of what you were saying, like even walking around with your friend and some coffee is a great way to actually feel better in this time of uncertainty, no matter if you're uncertain about technology or like whatever it is.
And a walk around the mall is moving your body too.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's great in the winter time, right?
Sleep correlates to all aspects of our life and is so crucial for our health and our happiness. Mercedes and I have absolutely been loving our Manta sleep masks, as they have 100% blackout. They have these amazing cups over the eyes, so it's even more comfortable to sleep on, and you can get them in so many different styles and colors, and they're so comfortable. The best part is that you can save 10% off your Manta sleep mask using our affiliate link down in the show notes below. Now let's get back into the episode.
I also like how you mentioned that you stopped being so judgmental, because I feel like that is something that's so easy for all of us to get into. And I feel like you mentioned, you felt so much better when you weren't judging other people. And I feel like that's almost, we think that the way we think is the way others do as well. So if we're constantly judging other people, thinking, like the sweater example, like that's not a very nice sweater, you're kind of thinking and going around that everyone else that you're looking at is also thinking the same thing about whatever you're wearing or about your hair or the way you're looking or walking, and you almost feel like you're being scrutinized yourself. And then when you kind of start thinking about positive things about other people, I feel like it almost feels like the whole world's a bit more positive.
100%. And also, I forgot, I'm glad you brought it up again, because I almost forgot that if I'm not leaving the house, so like it's been a snowstorm around here, so it's like we're not going anywhere. You can do it online too. Like one of my favorite things to do is just to be random, especially on people's TikToks that don't have a ton of views or anything. You're like, this looks yummy. Thanks for sharing. Like it's simple and silly, but it's like, think of a compliment you can give someone, because people are so quick to troll and to be like, well, I don't like that, or this looks stupid. And it's like, that's not helpful. So, and how nice does it feel when you get a nice comment? So I'm like, oh, cool. It feels like you're like sprinkling like future little happy bits for other people, and it makes me feel better.
I love that. Even if you're going to be on your phone, like use it to spread some positivity, because it still benefits you at the end of the day, ultimately. So if someone, wakes up and they just feel overwhelmed by the state of the world, what would be the first thing that you think they should do?
Take a shower, and then probably shake out, and don't get on social media. Like those are like my 3, like I'd stack those, boop, boop, boop. Yeah. And then I'd even for myself, like sometimes then I'll get into journaling. So it'd be like, I get up, I shower, I don't get on social media, I do a shakeout, and then I would journal about the things that I'm grateful for, because that kind of pulls me out. If you have a good friend you can call, that could work too. Like we have to kind of sometimes force our brain out of the spiral, because it knows that so well. So it can like easily pick up speed. So we have to like stop it more quickly, the sooner the better.
Get out of the spiral before
Absolutely.
it gets too deep.
Yes. And do you think that humans are actually wired to tolerate this level of constant uncertainty with the constant news alerts, the global crises, the economic pressure, and just an overall heightened awareness of worldwide issues throughout all these online sources?
I don't think we're made for it. I think we can handle it. Like, not to pretend to be positive, but I do think we can. Like, we have to think about history and all the bad things, and not to like be on the negative, but like think of all the bad things that have happened and how how people have sustained throughout. Like I just interviewed this woman the other day, and her grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and the one thing she learned from them was like how to be optimistic. And I'm like, what? That just seems like the opposite, right? Like opposite day. And so I really think that we're more resilient than we realize, but I don't believe that we are made to be this connected and this bombarded with information. I think that's what's leading to this feeling of uncertainty. I honestly think that if we pull ourselves out of that, we'd realize that things aren't actually that uncertain. That one thing that really bothers me, I think it's because I'm a therapist, like the psychologist mind of mine. I hate when media, like especially even like traditional news, they use these inflammatory words to get us emotionally charged. They'll be like, I don't know, it's just, instead of just saying the facts, like, okay, let's say somebody robbed a convenience store. They could say like, so-and-so robbed the convenience store. They'll be like, they'll use certain terminology, like, I don't know, immigrant man ran in, accosted owner. Like they just make it sound more intense, almost killed him. Like they use really intense words to get us to click, to get us to watch. And then I think we take away from that it's like way more intense. I'm not to say that things aren't a big deal, but I think they use that language to get us charged up, and that leads to those increased feelings of uncertainty.
Yeah, it is interesting how, like, even, it's not even always just the facts that are uncertain, but, like, the way that we're consuming them, I guess. Like you said, that diet of what we're taking in with our eyeballs is really, really impactful.
I love the way you said that.
Yeah.
I think that thinking about what we consume, just, like, looking and reading, and it really is like a diet, and it really can change the way we think.
And if there's one thing we can do in this world of uncertainty and social media and online connectivity is like really pay attention to what are we consuming and how much of it we're consuming, because we do have control over that.
Just like food.
Yes. And as a therapist, what is your biggest piece of advice, Katie, for parents listening to raise resilient kids in this modern world? Model
behavior. I think parents always think, I don't have kids by choice, so I can't pretend that I know what that's like. Kudos to all the parents out there doing, this hard work. However, I think, at least from my friends who have children, they always feel like they need to do something active. Like I need to tell them, I need to talk to them. Communication's great. And yes, you should talk to your children. However, I think even speaking as someone who remembers what it was like to be a teenager, I didn't really want to talk to my mom all the time. I wasn't going to tell her everything, and I love my mom, but like, you know, you're in that period of time where you're like, I don't really want to share everything, and you're going to get upset about this, and like, it's not that big of a deal, you know. And so I think instead of thinking that we have to have all the right words and we have to communicate it in a certain way, what we can really do is model the behavior. We can show them what we do to feel better. Like, I think it's important for children to see that, like, hey, I'm gonna go in the back, I'm gonna journal. You can journal with me if you want, if they're young enough and they want to, you know, sometimes kids like to do things with their mom. One of my girlfriends, her daughter's like, she calls her Velcro child. So you could bring her in. But show them what you do. And like, you know, mom's having a bad day. I think it's okay we really need to be honest about the fact that we have ups and downs. I don't think any child benefits from a parent pretending things are okay, because trust me, as someone, you know, grew up in that kind of a family, we always know something's wrong. Like, you can't lie to me. Also, we hear way better than they think that we hear, right? And I'm like, we heard you fighting. Don't pretend you didn't. We live in the same house. And so I really think that parents can model great behavior like that, and can, even if it depends on the age of your child, but I think letting them know, hey, I'm doing this, or if they're having a bad day, I think it's good to ask, like, hey, do you want me just to listen, or do you want me to try to fix? Because parents always jump to the fix, and it's out of good intentions, but it can feel so invalidating and minimizing, because you're like, dude, I just wanted you to listen. Like, I don't need you to tell me what to do. And so ask for that. And if they say, hey, I do need help, then you have some tools to offer. Hey, you know what I do is I do this. So that's when we can communicate. But I really think that as parents, we learn from those who are older than us by watching what they do. So it's less about what you say and it's more what you do.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how we do learn from like just watching. And I think one thing that our parents always like kind of modeled to Anastasia and I was like that communication part is like, if you feel frustrated, like say why, because otherwise it just, you know, it gets lost in translation, and it's so much better to just be upfront. If you're like mad at someone or wish that they did something, like don't hold that in, tell them. And I think that that's a really great part of a relationship.
Like, you can't assume the other person is a mind reader. Yeah. If I want Mercedes to sit at the table for dinner, I can't just like stare at her trying to like communicate.
Yeah, sit at the table and like bang your fists around hoping that she realizes there's no silverware.
But I think that's great advice, and it's a good kind of opportunity for parents and for adults listening to take those steps that we talked about, spending time with friends or taking a long shower or doing some journaling, because it isn't, you know, taking away from family time or from, you know, doing work of any sort, but just, you know, actually contributing to helping the dynamics.
Yes. Yeah. And you also engage your audience beyond YouTube. You have the Ask Katie Anything podcast, where you address your listeners' questions on anxiety, depression, relationships, etc. And what are some of your most popular questions, and what would your answer be in a sentence or two?
The most popular questions I actually get, it's kind of funny because it's a surprise to me. It was more about like kind of what's normal and not normal in therapy. I think a lot of people don't know like what to expect, or like, hey, is this cool that my therapist does this? And so I get a ton of questions about that. And I have videos if people want to look up like how to know you're seeing a good therapist, how to know if your therapist is bad. And the truth about it is that therapy should be your time. So you should feel like you go there and your therapist hears you, they see you, they remember important things in your life, and they check up on you in that way. They don't talk about themselves. They don't fall asleep, you know, like, I know some of it's kind of obvious, but a lot of people, because therapists can be put on this pedestal that like, oh, we're better. People, it's like a doctor, and people think like, oh, I just have to take what they give me. No, you should find someone you feel comfortable talking with. Yes, I know it's a weird setup, but you should feel comfortable, and you should feel like they're there for you to help you towards your goals.
How interesting. I never would have thought that it would be about the actual like act of therapy, but it makes sense. So I hope that anyone listening who is curious checks out your content.
And I think finding the right therapist is definitely a journey to get to.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it took me like 6 before I found my newest one. So yeah.
It's okay. Don't give up if it's not the right fit right away.
Oh, and last little tidbit. If you are looking for a therapist, and I'd assume this is the same no matter if you're in Canada, the US, UK, wherever, is that if you are looking to make an appointment, almost every therapist out there, I'd say like 99.9%, offer what's known as a free consultation. So you can get on the phone with them for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Some people offer a whole half hour. Take those. Ask for that. Because that can give you the vibe. Like, hey, do I really like them? Do they seem to get me? Do they seem friendly enough? take that free consultation.
That's awesome. That's a good thing to know.
Definitely.
Totally. And Katie, talking about your book, Why Do I Keep Doing This? Unlearn the Habits Keeping You Stuck and Unhappy. This is your latest book, right?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. So I know that just released in December, and it would be amazing if you could give us like a little overview and maybe one thing we can take away, because everyone listening should definitely go and check that out. But yeah, if we could have like a little overview, that would be amazing.
Of course. So my book, Why Do I Keep Doing This, is probably my most personal book. It's like my own journey with control. So control is such a precarious relationship that we have with control, and I kind of walk you through the ways that it shows up in my life, right? Because if I said, oh, don't worry, Mercedes, I got it under control, you'd be like, good, she's got this. But if I said, hey, Anastasia, my boyfriend's kind of controlling, you'd be like, you should probably get out of that relationship, right? And that's just a basic example of how control can be good and it can be bad. And so I talk essentially about how it's shown up in my life. I address perfectionism, people pleasing, my discomfort with strong emotions, like how I don't really like anger and conflict. Also, how I can feel if I feel too vulnerable or too exposed. I do what my therapist called puffer fish, where I like stick my spines out and like disconnect from people. And so I just essentially am walking people through what I've learned, because I've been in and out of therapy off and on since I was 15. And so it's kind of like what I've learned myself, and as a therapist, what I know, and how there's still things that I'm learning. We're always works in progress. Unfortunately, there's no like finish line. I'm going to try to do better tomorrow, right? And this is just my journey through it. And each chapter represents kind of like a piece of that journey, starting off with the blueprint. Like that's the first chapter, is like, how did I figure out what relationships were going to look like, and how did control feed into that? Like, where did it come from? Why did I create this story about it? And so my key takeaway that I hope people get from the book is, first of all, that they're not alone. Like, I think we all have a weird relationship with control, and that there is something you can do about it. You can rewrite your blueprint. You can have a different story that you tell yourself, that how you feel today isn't how you're going to feel forever.
Incredible. I love it. And I love how open and personal you get, because I think, when we get these stories from people who are like you, educated in mental health, but also so open about your own journey with it, it helps all of us be more kind of in tune with our own selves and understand that it's okay to go
life
through
isn't
that.
perfect. And even if you are helping other people, it does not mean that you're never going to experience that yourself.
Yes. And Katie, what are your daily kind of mental wellness habits that keep you grounded?
I do my mirror work first thing in the morning, and I'm trying, so this is what I love about being online, is that people tell me about stuff and then I try it out. So I've been trying EFT tapping, which is essentially when you tap, there's like 8 main points, your temples, between your eyebrows, under here, blah, blah, on your chest. Anyway, you can look it up, EFT tapping, and I do that. I package it with my mirror work. So I do my mirror work, and then I do some EFT tapping, which is where you tell yourself the things that you are wanting. Again, going to that, like, things I'm looking forward to, what's really happening. I have been trying that every day. I've been doing it for like 3 weeks. I swear it changes my mood. So I do that regularly. I also journal pretty regularly, but I don't like to ever think that I have to do something every day. I'm like, some days it just doesn't happen, and that's okay. So I do journaling. I've been practicing yoga for probably like 20 years. Isn't that crazy? Wow. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but for a really long time. And I try to practice every other day, because it's a lot of time. It's like an hour to an hour and a half. It's a lot of time to commit to it. So I do that to take care of myself. I also, make sure I eat regularly. And I've been trying, this is something that I'm not good at, that I'm trying to get better at, is spending time with friends, like people that really know me, not like acquaintances, but people who can ask me how I am, and I'll actually tell them.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that concept of EFT tapping is so interesting. I never knew that you could like tap certain parts on your brain or on your face, and that would help. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know the science behind it. I will be doing, if it works for me, I will be doing research, and I will report back. Because people have talked about it, that it was so helpful for them. And I've heard it from my audience. They kept asking me about it. Thank God for their persistence. And so I looked into it, and as I've told people, they're like, oh yeah, I do that. Like, so many people in my life. I'm like, how have you not been telling me? And so it's supposed to improve your mood. And also they believe that it like helps you, if you believe in manifestation, or if you believe in that kind of, I call it like witchy stuff. I love witchy stuff. And so I'm like, if you believe in that, it's supposed to help with that as well. But I just find the nervous system regulation to be really fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Incredible.
Thank you for
And
sharing
what is
that.
one piece of advice that if you could go back and tell your teenage self, what would you say?
Ooh, I mean, there's so much I would tell her. Oh my God. I guess I'd probably say that anyone who causes you to feel like you have to hustle or earn their attention and love is not worth your time. Because I think I spent a lot of my life, part of it, like I wrote about in my book too, like just from the way that I believed love and attention should be given, I thought I had to earn it. And so if I could tell her that that's like, you know, they're not worth your time, that would save me a lot of like heartbreak and also just a lot of energy.
Yeah, if someone makes you feel like you have to like compete or like be good enough for them, that's definitely not a sign of a true person that's good for your life. Totally. And Katie, what do you do every day that brings you a small bit of happiness?
Ooh, I mean, I play with my dog. She's the best. And I think also just like, and this is going to sound really silly, but I like tend to things around my house. Like right now it's really cold, so I can't do this, but I love pulling weeds. It sounds silly, but it makes me feel happy. And I also, when it's done, it looks amazing and I feel fulfilled. Yeah. And I mean, even just joking with my husband, I think it's just setting aside time to be off my phone and connecting. It really just, all those little like sparkles of happiness and hope. Those are the things that really make my days.
I love that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And this is one of my personal favorite questions. What is a go-to dinner for you on a busy night?
Ooh, okay, okay, so this is going to sound silly, but it's my go-to right now. Okay, so it changes all the time, but we've been doing this and it takes like no time, is that viral soup dumpling lasagna. I don't know if anybody's heard of this. Okay, so I'll tell you what it is. It's very easy. So you take ground pork, you cut up a green onion, and you cut up some cabbage and mushroom. That's all you gotta do. That's all the work. You put it all in a bowl together. Then you put in like some ginger, salt, pepper, little soy sauce, a little fish sauce if you have it. If you're weird about that, you don't have to. And then a little sesame oil. Mix it all together, and then you lay wontons down, and you put that meat stuff that we just did down, and wonton meat. You do like 3 or 4 layers. Steam it for 30 minutes. Boom. It's the fastest meal, and I tell you, it's delicious.
I have not heard of that.
We
So
will
thank
have to
you
try
for bringing
that.
that to us because we're gonna have to give it a shot.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Yes.
And a final question is do you have a quote that you love and remember, and if so, why?
My favorite quote, well, I have 2. My favorite is, comparison is the thief of joy. And I come back to that one a lot, just especially social media, right? There's so many people, it seems like, how is your life so great? And like, how do you have all this money? Or what are you doing? Oh my God. And we can just feel like we're behind or things aren't as good. And so I just remind myself, like, comparison's a thief of joy, because my life is pretty good. I'm sure your life is pretty good, right? We don't have to look to other people. So comparison's a thief of joy. My second favorite is, we don't have to light ourselves on fire to keep other people warm. And I think sometimes we do that in our relationships and in our life. And the sooner we realize that, the better. It's just a really powerful one. I always feel like it resonates with me more. I'm like, oof, yep, I'm burning myself out.
Oh, I love those both.
amazing.
They're both so like, I feel like those are the types of quotes that you hear them and you can just like think of a situation in your life or a situation that you have gone through in your life before where they can directly apply.
Yes.
So thank
Well,
you
thank you so much, Katie. This has been such an incredible
Where
conversation.
can our audience find you if they would like to keep up and learn more?
Yeah, all over social media, it's just Kati Morton, Katimorton. And as you both mentioned, I have a podcast, Ask Katie Anything, that comes out on Thursdays. And my main YouTube channel, Kati Morton, videos come out on Monday, on TikTok, Instagram. And also I have 3 books, Are You Okay, Traumatized, and Why Do I Keep Doing This? And they are available wherever books are sold.
Amazing. Well, thank you so very much for joining us here today. And we've learned so much and we're so grateful to have had you on.
Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, and thank you so much, Katie, for joining us today.
If you enjoyed this conversation, we think you would love our interview with Dr. Tracy Marks. With Dr. Marks, we talk all about the ADHD rundown, everything you need to know about ADHD, how to tell if you're experiencing stress or anxiety, and she gives us a whole toolkit of things to do if you're feeling stressed and how to feel better.
You can just wake up anxious. You can just feel that way every single day and not really have anything to tie it to. And so it's not like it's just this thing happened and now you're anxious. You can just feel that way. Can't tell you how many times I've heard from patients, well, I've tried all that stuff. None of that stuff works. There are lots of different things that you can do to mitigate or manage anxiety, the way I divided it up.
You can listen to our conversation with Dr. Marks now. It's linked in the show notes. See you next time.